Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Emily with me, and we were just talking before I hit record of how we kind of do things on our own time, about how some people are like really on the dot, and I was telling her how people kind of give me shit because I run on Sasha time. So I thought that was pretty funny, and I was like, we should probably hit record and get this thing started. So I'm super stoked that she's here. We're going to talk all things soulful career. We're going to talk about mindset and abundance and all things woo. I really think that she's my people. So you guys are really going to love this conversation. So Emily, if you could share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we can get into your story here too. I'd love that.
Let's do it. Sasha, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, I think within the first few minutes, we've already bonded. We already know we're on the same wavelength. Like, you just know, you have that initial connection and you're like, yep, okay, part of the tribe, got it. So I am Emily Eliza Moyer. I am an intuitive career strategist is what I call myself. But really what that means is that most of my work is focused on helping ambitious women, but women, professional women, build careers that they absolutely love using their intuition. And I obviously use my intuition to both build my entire business and really through all of the work that I do with clients. But I also teach women how to use theirs. So it sort of is this like meta thing where everything we're doing is really driven by intuition. So I'll sort of kick off with that. Do you want me to go into my story now, or?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, and I know I talk about intuition and going with your gut, but like, what does intuition mean to you and how do you break that down? And then let's get into your story.
Yes, such a good question. So the way I see it, and I'm curious, Sasha, how you sort of do intuitive work with your clients too. I believe we actually all have different ways that our intuition speaks to us. So just like everything in life, I don't think there's like one answer to that. So the answer really is you have your own unique intuitive language, and I help you actually figure out what that is. And it's like a muscle. So ultimately, you know, when you go to the gym for the first time and you don't even know the muscle exists in your body, right? We've all done that workout where we're like, I didn't even know I had that muscle in my back, right? And like, how is it sore? It's the same thing. So, you know, the first time you really start to use your intuition, it's like for many of us, you know, we might be able to recognize big moments in our life when our intuition was talking to us, right? Those really big decision points or pivotal moments. But for many of us, you know, even that, you know, we can't really tell the difference between fear and intuition, and, you know, then being able to actually interpret your own intuitive language and use it, you know, in your daily life can be challenging if you can't recognize, right, where that muscle is, what that muscle does, and how to really engage it, right, in a way where it both is able to actually help you dictate your day or your life, and also in a way that feels like comfortable, right, where you can actually trust it and hear it and listen to it. So the simplest way I really help people learn about their own intuitive language is almost just through self-study. So, you know, step one is really, how do we connect to ourselves, right? So I use meditation. It's the simplest way I've found to really help me not only connect with my own intuition, but to help clients connect to theirs. But there's actually quite a lot of ways. There's a lot of different ways for us to be able to kind of quiet the mind and actually connect to ourselves. So whether that's getting into nature, taking a walk, moving your body, whatever it is, step one's always just, can you connect to yourself? And then the second is really just doing a self-study of, you know, when has my intuition spoken to me in the past? What did that feel like in my body? What did it sound like in my mind? What did I do? How did the action reinforce or maybe contradict sort of whatever my intuition was telling me? And then through the sort of historical study, and as you start to sort of realize how it's been talking to you throughout your life, then you can start to recognize it more in the present moment. And the more you actually recognize it in the present moment, then you can actually start to actively use it. And then actually sort of it reinforces itself the more you use it, and the more you trust it, and the more you take action in alignment with it. You sort of start to feel what it feels like, and it gets easier and easier and easier. So that's sort of what I do with it. But yeah, Sasha, I'm curious to hear how you would explain that.
So intuition to me, I get intuition in two different ways. Either like thoughts like randomly pop into my mind, like I call it like, and I used to hate the word divine because it made me think of like I don't know, it just was a weird word to me, but it's almost like a divine download. And it's like, I'll just be like in the zone doing something, feeling good. And all of a sudden I'll have like a thought pop in and it's like, holy shit, I have to do this thing. And like everything within me is like, go do this thing, stop everything you're doing and go do this thing. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, that's more of like, I would say the breadcrumbs, like what my soul calling is, or, like following the steps to, my truest and highest potential. And then my gut reaction is like when anything like bad is like, ugh, don't do that. I get like this really like nasty feeling in like the pit of my stomach. And it's like, stop, don't do it. Don't, it feels, it just feels icky. It feels constricting. And so those are the two ways that I've, and you always hear people that say, go with your gut. Forgot to silence my phone during this.
That's okay.
Rookie move. But I always, say like, you hear people say like, go with your gut, go with your gut. And so that's like a really simple way of putting it with people. But I would agree with you, like meditation has been huge for me, like quieting the mind. And when I first got into meditation, I did guided meditations because my brain was just like all over the place that I couldn't even quiet it. So I found it really simple to kind of follow along with what somebody was saying. But as I've been practicing over the years, I almost prefer a nature sound or silence, or even like a light musical. I mean, even like there's a few that just repeat the word Om, and like I find those almost to be the most therapeutic and like the most opening for me. But also being out in nature, like where you just like remove yourself from devices, you like reconnect with nature, and it just feels good, and when you're kind of in that feel good, you're open to receive. And so that's also where like the intuition or the divine downloads kind of come in. So that's what it is for me. And I always encourage my clients to, one thing I tell them is, go leave your phone at home, go walk around outside, put your feet in the dirt, like reconnect with yourself and reconnect with nature. And you may say to yourself, I don't know a million times, but then all of a sudden that I don't know turns into, well, maybe I do know. Well, what if I did this? And what if I did this? And then that stream of thoughts continues. And that's, then you can start following those breadcrumbs.
Totally. And, I think the interesting thing too about our intuition is, you were saying this thought process of, I don't know. I always tell clients, like, many times we're not going to have the answer until we're supposed to have the answer. So if you don't have the answer yet, can you allow yourself to just let it go and come back to it later? Because if that answer isn't there, it's because maybe you don't have all the information, or you're not ready, or like there's so many different reasons for why you don't have it. But the truth is you're just not going to have it until you have it. So just like let it go, right? It'll come, right? We're never left without the answer. So I think that can be really helpful too, because, we can get really hung up on needing the answers to certain things, right? Figuring out the how, versus, when we really just allow ourselves to trust that like, it'll come, like we'll get it. But yeah, I love that. I love what you said. I mean, the truth that there really are so many different ways that we can sort of quiet down that mind so we can start to hear it. And I used to hate the word divine too, actually. It was like really just like turned me off and couldn't handle it. And now I don't know. I get it. Like it sort of is exact. I would say I rarely would have ever journaled the word divine before. And now I'm like, nah, it's totally like, I get it. It's that connection, right? That connection to that's something that we're all connected to. But yeah, I also, my personal intuitive language is quite similar to yours, where I have like these downloads that come into my mind. And a lot of mine actually come through journaling. So whenever I have questions for myself, I will write the question and then I'll sort of see what comes. And I think it's almost like my mind can get out of the way and sort of whatever my higher self and intuition kind of, I allow it to come forward and actually give me the answer rather than sort of feeling like I know what it is and sort of writing to it. So it's always just like another tool in the toolbox for anybody who's listening and wants to sort of explore how to tap into your intuition.
I like that. So how did you get into this? What did you do before this? And how did you kind of come to this? I'm curious, simply because like the divine thing, because that was always such like a creepy word, or even like feminine. Like there's just a lot of these like words, or personal development or self-care. Like I was really triggered by these words 5 or 10 years ago. And it's funny because now that's kind of my life. So I'm curious to see where you came from and how you ended up to be the Emily that we see today.
Yeah, I was not spiritual like at all growing up. You too. So I just, I grew up Jewish, but like being Jewish in the way that I grew up, it was very much about just, it was like an ethnicity more than a religion. Like we had practices, we had traditions, we do family dinners, we would do holidays, but we talked a little bit about God, but I was that kid who was just like, I basically got myself almost like kicked out of like religious school because I was asking the questions about like, what do the rabbis say about sex and what about tattoos, and like all these things. And they were just like not answering my questions at 16. So I sort of wrote it off where I was like, if you can't answer these basic questions about what it means to be a human, like this makes no sense to me. So, this idea of God, honestly, just kind of didn't sit with me. And I just so for a while, I'd call myself like an agnostic Jew or an atheist Jew. And now, so that was sort of my upbringing. It was like, it wasn't super religious, but it was sort of under, this like Jewish community was like what I knew. So I'll sort of tell you the spiritual side and sort of how this all comes together. But many of us in the world have sort of this like breaking point where your world sort of cracks open for one reason or another. And my world sort of cracked open when I was 27, 28, and sort of a slow cracking from like 25 to 28 to these like 2 weeks where quick background, I'll sort of weave both of these together. My career started in education. So I was a teacher. I did Teach for America and was in the education world for about 5 years. And then made a really big career pivot and joined a company called Remote Year, which is a company that takes remote professionals on trips around the world for a year. So I had it was truly my dream job. I got to run a sales and a marketing team for a travel startup, grow it from like nothing to, I had a 30-person sales team. I was leading all around the world. I was working remotely from all over the world in a new country every month for about 5 years, which was amazing. But it also was sort of in the middle of that, I was working 15-hour days. I was literally, work hard, play hard in a new country every month, like totally not taking care of myself. My relationship at the time totally fell apart. Some family stuff and some old childhood trauma stuff sort of came up to the surface. And I had that explosion moment, right? And I found myself in Sofia, Bulgaria, depressed for the first time in my life. And I'm like laughing about it now, but I like could not get out of bed for 2 weeks. Was like crying, was like hiding in the conference room. And then that was sort of the moment, right? Where I was like, something's not working. Like something's broken. I'm in my dream job. I'm traveling the world. I'm doing all these things and I'm depressed, right? So something is cracked. And that was really the beginning of like my spiritual journey. That was sort of, that moment of awakening where you just sort of really, it was slow. It wasn't in that moment, but that's sort of what put me on the path to starting to really realize that I had totally disconnected from myself. I don't know that I ever had been connected to myself before that even. Like, I don't even know if I could answer that, but for the first time really started to just ask myself, like, what do I need? What does my body need? What does it mean to be connected to myself? And all of, and we can get into it, but that's really what sort of sparked this journey towards spirituality. And so I think over the last however many years, as that's grown and strengthened, and obviously now that it's a huge piece of my business, it's really, it's sort of like once the light's on, you can't turn the light off,
You can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it.
Nope, exactly. So then you end up starting your own thing and then leaving your corporate job, or leaving your corporate job and just like 2 feet in, create something? How did that transition happen?
Yeah. So Remote Year is a startup. So I had been leading the sales team for about 3 years, and then I had transitioned into I led our marketing team. And we, as most startups do, were trying to raise a Series B, which was pretty tough, and we couldn't raise it. First round of layoffs, I had to lay off most of my team. Second round of layoffs, my entire team got laid off. And, you know, I think about it today, looking back, and it always all makes sense looking back, right? Hindsight's 2020, but I always sort of say, like, you can't connect the dots until you're looking back, right? And really that was, I always knew I wanted, maybe not always, but since college, right? I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur one day. I was obsessed with this idea of social entrepreneurship in college. It was this new idea, right? Like social businesses, right? This hybrid model. I was fascinated by it. I studied it in college. Like it didn't even really, I mean, it was so new back then. And so I kind of knew at some point in my life that was something that I wanted to explore. I wanted to at least try. I didn't know if I would succeed, but I had to try. And so I had actually already started buying domains and getting clients here and there before I had gotten laid off. Nothing serious, but just kind of dipping my toe in the water. So the day I got laid off, I, of course, was sad. My ego was bruised for a minute, but sort of the next day I was like, guess it's time to start that business.
Better get to work.
I better get to work because, like, I'm not going to get another job. Like, I had the dream job. The dream job was awesome and it was amazing, but I knew it was time for me to really figure out what my business was going to look like. And now we're here.
So for those listening, can you explain what it is you do and how you kind of came to that?
Yes. So my main work now with clients is actually through a program called Path to Purpose. And Path to Purpose is a premium online course that's a hybrid. So you also get coaching while you go through this self-guided, self-paced online course. And the course itself is really designed with the outcome of building a career that you absolutely love using your intuition. And the way that it really works is, you know, obviously what most people come to me for is like, they want a new job, right? I hate my job. I hate it. It's making me crazy, or I'm bored, or I know there's something more out there for me, or, you know, I don't want to, whatever it is, be in marketing for the rest of my life, whatever it is. And what we see on the surface level is like, okay, the job's not making me happy. The boss is bad. The work environment's toxic, whatever it is. But what's always happening? I can't even say usually anymore. What's always happening?
What's happening?
Is that our careers, right? Whatever's happening in our external world is a mirror, as you know, for what's happening on your internal world. So if you're really unhappy with your career, it's because there's something that's like seriously out of alignment, right? With who you are, right? So when everybody's coming into my program really focused on that external piece. I got to change the job. And what my job has been is to help reroute that, right? And reframe that into, okay, sure, but let's do all this other stuff first and then see where that leads you in terms of creating a career that you love and sort of not hating your job anymore. So what that really looks like is my first module of my program is all about exactly what you and I have been talking about. How do you connect with yourself? How do you build your intuitive muscle? How do you heal the old wounds that are creeping up that are asking to be healed? And really become your own healer? How do you release limiting beliefs? I know you do a lot of work with that too. How do you release limiting beliefs that are holding you back? So it's really all about sort of, you know, doing a lot of that really intense healing work, which if you're that unhappy in life, it's because you have a lot of healing work that's asking to be done, which is a great thing. It's a beautiful thing, right? That's where we grow the most, is when we have lots of healing work to do. So that's where we always start. And then from there, it actually gets a lot easier because once you've healed a bunch of that stuff, you kind of know what you want, right? So we do a lot of work with purpose and vision and writing your own rules and getting really clear on sort of building that map or that framework for who you are as a human. And then by the time we're actually starting to figure out what do you want to do in terms of, do you want to start your own thing, or do you want to land a dream job, or are you going to stay where you are? It's just clear at that point because you're connected to yourself. And even if it's not clear, you've got the process and the tools and the mindsets for how to start making choices that are in alignment with actually what's right for you, rather than on what you should be doing or what your partner thinks you should be doing, or society, or the boxes, checking the boxes, or whatever it all. So that's my course. Sorry, we really went deep there.
So my first question is like, and the reason is because I talk a lot about limiting beliefs because it's so interesting. I actually just got off the phone with somebody who was like, I don't know what's holding me back. You know, I want to do this, but I can't. I want to do this, but I can't. I want to do this, but I can't. And I'm like, you are literally blocking yourself. And then the other thing that she said to me was, well, on my vision board, I have it, the top 4 self-sabotage things so that I can look at them and not do them. I said, oh my God, like don't put those on there, because if you put the 4 self-sabotage things on, like you're just going to reinforce your self-sabotage. I said, you want to write the exact opposite of that, the desired outcome, the desired result. And so like helping these people really like rewire their brain, you know, and a lot of times we don't even know what's stopping us until somebody like you or somebody else kind of comes in and is like, hey, don't do that thing that you're doing, you know? But you talk about limiting beliefs, and I know that there's usually like a handful of core ones that kind of come through like your group of individuals or the clients you work with. So I'm interested in hearing what the most common limiting beliefs are and kind of what you would suggest to overcome those. There's a lot, probably.
There's a lot. I love that. I mean, I love this stuff though. So for anybody who's listening, and Sasha, I'm sure this is like similar to, but obviously share if your process is different. The way that I work with limiting beliefs, the way that I see them is quite often they come in at this really surface level belief. Like the surface level belief might be like, I can't start a business because I don't know how, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough, or whatever it is. Or it's like, I can't because I don't have enough money, or I'm not going to be able to make enough money, or whatever it is. There's this like surface level belief that says like, why, whatever the no is, however the no is coming in, right? But there's always, when I think about core beliefs, there's always like, it's much more deeply rooted than that, right? So it's like, we really got to figure out like, okay, cool. Like that one's there, but let's go like 10 layers deeper to figure out like what's underneath all of it. And it's usually, I'm not safe, or I won't feel safe. I'm not worthy. I'm not loved, right? I'm not good enough. Right. There's these really core they're almost universal. Like there's these universal core beliefs, and there's not very many of them, right, that I've found. And once you start to like intellectually even connect the dots, it becomes really easy to identify them and rewrite them really quickly. So the few that I really see quite often is I'm not safe, or I'm not worthy, or, you know, I'm not good. I'm not good enough, or whatever. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing. There's so many different processes and different tools and so many different strategies and modalities you can use. But at its simplest, it's identifying what that belief is, getting to the core of it, really helping your mind unpack it. Because our mind, though our higher self is sort of, you know, we want to eventually get to a place where our higher self and our intuition is really driving, our mind needs to be able to wrap its head around, right, what the new belief is going to be, right? There's an active piece that your mind, an active role your mind can play in this process when we talk about rewiring our brains, right? So when your mind can start to actively understand, like, it makes absolutely no sense that you would be unsafe, or that you are not worthy, or all of these things, then it becomes this cognitive dissonance, right? Your mind can like no longer believe this negative belief because it just doesn't make sense. And so it becomes so much easier for your mind to latch on to a new belief. And I always sort of teach like there's two real ways to change your beliefs. It's either through the thought, so choosing the new thought, or through the action. Fuck the thought, just do the thing. And over time, the action's just going to reinforce that new belief. And I'm sure you teach something similar. And so, yeah.
No, I love that. I always tell people, like, you sometimes just have to shut up and do it. Like, shut up and do it. I don't mean like in a literal sense, shut up. I mean like shut up the brain and just do the thing and like prove yourself wrong, basically, you know, like prove yourself wrong. Like what's the worst that could happen? Like one of the things that I always tell people is, yeah, like it's scary. It's like getting to the top of a high dive and looking down and being like, holy shit, like, am I really going to do this? But then you jump and you just make a big splash and you don't actually die. And then you go do it again and it gets easier and easier and easier, you know? And so I remember looking back, and I know I used to struggle a lot with limiting beliefs. And my big thing was, I could never do that. Like somebody's already doing that. Like, who am I? Like I used to really struggle with imposter syndrome, you know, which it's just such total bullshit. But I know that now, but at the time, like it seemed like a very real thing to me. And so, I mean, even coaches have help, even, entrepreneurs have help. Everybody has help. And that was another thing I had to get over is, I'm a strong-willed, educated individual. I shouldn't be asking for help. Like I should know these things, and so even that was a limiting belief. Like I was being my own block. So I had to have somebody else be like, no, it's okay to ask for help. And successful business owners and successful entrepreneurs, like they have a team, like they don't do shit by themselves. And if anybody thinks that they do, well, then they're totally wrong. Like I don't know any team or business or anybody that I've aspired to be not ask for help. And so I kind of had to get out of my own way and really research and view the people that I respected and aspired to be and be like, well, what are they doing? And sometimes just proving myself in that aspect. But yeah, did you have any like limiting beliefs, or do you have anything that ever comes up for you, like recurring stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get into my limiting beliefs, but there's something that you called out that I think is like so important that I want to go deeper in, which is this idea of, you said like, shut up the mind and just do it anyways. And what I found too is like, sometimes you don't even have to shut up the mind. Like the mind can still be like, I'm afraid, I'm fucking afraid. Right. And you just do the damn thing anyways. Right. Like, one of my favorite sort of visual images that I like to share, usually when your mind is going off like that, I don't know if you like sort of name it inner child stuff, but I name it your inner child stuff. Like I kind of work with
syndrome. It's like screaming.
Exactly. So it's like you have a toddler inside of you that's like having a temper tantrum, right? And so it's sort of imagining, like, can you imagine that inner child sitting on your lap and you're just going to build your empire anyways, right? Like your toddler can sit on your lap and have that temper tantrum. Like, it's fine. She can be screaming. Like, I'm sorry, I'm going to go build the empire now, right? So like, it's just not always this, we don't always even need to get rid of the fear. Like the fear can just be there. And as you said, like over time, it just goes away. Like it just gets easier. But it's okay if it's there. Like, it's just a normal part of, being a human. But yeah, of course I have my own limiting beliefs. I think we all do, right? Like, I think that's just like, I don't know if I've ever met a human who doesn't have some, right? And mine are always, it's interesting. Mine are less work related, actually. Mine are more personal related. And mine are, they've definitely popped up with work too, but mine were always about abandonment and rejection. Like I'm going to be rejected or I'm going to be abandoned. Mine are super tied to like childhood wounds and childhood trauma stuff. So a lot of my process with rewriting limiting beliefs was going into healing my own trauma. So that was like, once I started to do some of that healing work and I could see how that limiting belief about like, I'm going to be abandoned was popping up in places, then it became really easy for me to start to, to really see something. But that one still comes up all the time. And it's sort of one that I, especially in business as an entrepreneur, in the beginning at least, it popped up a lot around, just rejection, kind of having to get comfortable with rejection and not taking things personally. Like I've taken things personally my whole life. So especially when I was a full-time employee and, I had a boss and all of that stuff, like I never took criticism well. I never took feedback well. Like I would pretend on the outside and then I would like cry in reality when I got off the call or on the call. Right. And
not funny, but I hear you.
No, I laugh at it too. Like it's true. Like I have this thing. I mean, all of this stuff, right? It's like we talk about these serious things like trauma and like, but the truth is like they're just all natural, beautiful parts of being a human. So like, I like laughing at this stuff too because the lightness that you bring to it just makes. I always say like healing can be fun, like it doesn't have to be so hard, I
tell people that all the time. Like I'm like, yeah, talk about the hardship, but sometimes you just gotta laugh about it. And that's almost like. I feel like sometimes I'm the comic relief because it'll get like really, really heavy and I'm that person to like just all of a sudden bust out with laughter. And it's like the most inappropriate thing, but it's like, come on guys, it's still kind of funny. Like we're, I don't know. And then I always have to put things in perspective, it's, we're both sitting here in nice houses. We have nice computers. We're having a conversation. It's like, come on,
oh,
like, yeah, so I'm like, at least we have all these things going for us. There's nothing that serious going on. Like it could be worse, like just keep going. And not that like our feelings aren't valid. Like that's not what I'm saying because we all have emotions that we have to process. All of our feelings are valid. We all have stories, you know, and holding space for one another. But sometimes like that just helps me kind of get through it, you know?
Totally. I mean, I think one of the things I've been playing with lately is most of my biggest growth, I think really has happened because of pain and struggle. Like that's just how it's been in my life. Right. And for a lot of us. Right. But I do think there's this new world that we're sort of moving into, is that growth and expansion can happen with joy and in laughter. Right. And it's this pain and struggle story that we're used to, which is like, that's what drove most of the growth. I don't know. It's just sort of, I've also just been playing with like, well, what does it look like to heal and grow and expand and enjoy it, right? And to bring that laughter and that lightness to it. And I do this really awkward thing with my clients too, where they're like telling me their deepest, darkest moments, and I'm like smiling and getting really excited because I'm like, we've got some stuff to work through, and I'm like so excited. They're like, why are you smiling? Like,
I know, they're like, why are you so evil? And you're like, this is so good.
I'm like, I'm just so happy for you because we're going to like really unpack all this and you're going to feel so much better afterwards. And they're like, but I'm miserable. And I'm like, but you'll be fine. I promise. You're going to be so much better for this.
Exactly. And so like when you're done, you're like, oh man, I feel awesome. But like during it, it's like, fuck, this sucks.
I know, right? And also, do you know your human design?
I don't. Somebody just said that to me like a few days ago or a few months ago. And I've been meaning to do that. So no, I've been doing like personality tests. Like I know like a whole bunch of things, but I just found human design like a few weeks ago or months, like July maybe. So no, I don't know it yet. I need to there's like a test or a quiz or something.
You just actually put your birthday in, and it's almost, I mean, it's all these different systems combined, but it's like how you're wired just based on literally when you were born.
Tell me yours though. Tell us human design stuff. I'll see if I can find mine.
And if you know your birth time and your birthplace. But anyways, I'm a projector. I feel like you might be a projector. We'll see when you do yours. But what that really means is like projectors are here to guide and advise and can kind of like see the vision for things very clearly, especially for other people. So I'm sure this happens to you too all the time as a coach. Like I can see where my clients are going before they get there. Like I can see the healing. I can see the business they're going to start. I can see all the things. But I can't like tell them that yet, right? Because they've got to move through it on their own. And it's like, you know, that moment where I've got that evil smile. It's like, because I can see that it's all going to work out great for you, you know?
So what do they say to you when you're doing this kind of stuff? Like
when I'm just like being you know, anybody who works with me, I mean, you work with me because this is the style of human that you want to work with, right? Like people do not work with me if they don't. They have to choose me. That's sort of also the other thing about being a projector in particular is I only attract people who get me. If you do not get me, you do not sign up for my programs. It's just kind of how it works, right? And so they feel loved, they feel cared for, they feel like they know, you know, that they're going to get through it. And I think, especially now that the community has grown and there's so many people who have been through it, I think it also is just really comforting to see that other people have gotten through the really, really tough chapters of this program too. And so they know they're not going to just be like left to fend for themselves and sit in the mud for the rest of their lives, right? Like I'm not leaving you in the dark there. Like we're going to get you through it together.
I just did mine, and maybe you can expand on what these are.
Oh yeah, here, let's see.
So my type is a projector.
Of course you are. Okay.
My strategy, it says wait for the invitation.
Yep.
The not self theme is bitterness.
Yep, me too. Yep, keep going.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
The inner authority is splenic. I don't even know what that means.
Me too, I'll tell you. Okay, keep going.
The profile is 6/2.
Okay.
Definition is triple split definition.
Okay.
Incarnation cross is left angle cross of the clarion.
Okay.
And that's it.
Can you show me your chart really quick? Hold up your phone.
What is it? Is it this here?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. You have an open emotional too. Okay.
Tell me all the things.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you in 1 second because I just want to make sure that that's the right thing.
This is so fun. Okay, somebody else sent me this and said to do it, but I think maybe I did do this, but I don't know what any of the things mean. This is
Yeah.
all.
So you are, hold on one second. I'm going to tell you what yours is. I'm going to give you the high level in just a second. Okay. Oh my God. So fun. So this is so funny. Also, this makes total sense for why you and I are like, yeah. Show me one more time.
Okay. Hang on. Can you see it?
Yeah. 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 Okay. Okay, great. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a few different things. Yeah. Okay. I got enough. So, this is amazing. By the way, our type is one of the smallest percentages of people is our type. It's like more of a newer type. Sorry?
What color are your eyes?
Hazel.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I also have green eyes, and that's like,
My hazel is green.
we'll call it green. You're less than 5% of the population. We're just super
rare. So it's funny though that you are one, because I actually don't meet a lot of projectors. So anyway, so you're a projector. So what this means is, as I said, you're here to guide and advise. So the role that you are actually doing for work, why it feels so good to you, is because you're literally here to guide and advise. So you too, as I said, can see, right? When a client comes to you, you can already see their healing. You can already see their growth. You can already see the business they're going to start or where their business is going to go, all of that stuff. It's like,
calls me a seer. She's like, you see potential in people before they see it in themselves. You're a seer. And I'm like,
exactly. Because you're a projector, right? That's literally like how you're wired. But not everybody's like that. So that's just something to note, is like, that's actually quite unique. And that's why it's so right? You and I can be like laughing because we're like, we can see where it's all going, right? Because we actually can see where it's all going, right? So the wait for the invitation, this is, I'm sure, going to resonate with you. I want you to think about a moment in your life when you just gave advice before you were asked, before you were invited. How did it go down?
All the time. And
all the time.
I don't do it a whole lot anymore, because it's usually like, you know.
Exactly.
I'll only give advice if asked now. That was a lesson I had to learn.
So that's what wait for the invitation means. So that is why you and I have to wait for people to say, yeah, Sasha, please tell me what you think about this, right? And we have to basically get permission to share our seeing, to share our wisdom. We cannot just fucking word vomit it over everybody, which you and I both, I'm sure, learned the hard way.
Yeah, one thing I always tell people too is like, you can't fix people unless they want to be fixed, because a lot of times, like, I can see like what you need to do, but unless that person is like open to hearing it or open to receive, like, it's just thrown back in my face. And I've learned time and time and time again to just like, yeah, I just have to shut it up and get it out of my focus, because people don't always want to hear that stuff.
And so just like me, how you were like, what are your clients doing? I'm like, well, certain clients know if they want to work with me or not. That's the same for you. So like, you're only going to attract people who totally see you and get you. And if they do not see you and get you, they're just not your people. They're just not going to work with you.
1000%.
So
love me or they hate me. There's really not like an in between.
Totally. They either get you and you're like amazing, or they're like, I don't get her. Like, that makes no sense. Right. So that's the same for me, right? Like, you either totally get me or you don't. So, a couple of important pieces for you, which you probably know this, but you and I are actually only wired to work like to guide and to see. We're only wired to work a few hours a day.
Yes.
And, like, if you are working more than a few hours a day, which I have literally, like, this is why I've burned out so many times. So I'll continue, but like, respond to that first. How does that play out in your life?
No, so this is hilarious, because this is me, and my husband even gives me shit, because like, I'll have to like do self-care stuff, or I'll have to read, or I'll have to go outside, or I'll have to do things. But I do, just like you, I came from a background where I worked 3 jobs. Like, I literally was working from 7 a.m. to freaking 11 p.m. And then when I was in corporate, I was working 12 hours a day. Like, that was normal, but now, I know people probably are, if they're listening to the podcast, they can't see me, but like, air quotes, I work like 6 hours a day. And like, I used to feel like really guilty about saying that, but honestly, I can get more done in 6 hours than most people can in a week. And it's just how I operate. So.
Me too. And I'm on my way from like 5 to now to like 2 or 3. That's where I'm heading. Okay. I'm heading to 2 or 3. That's like where, and when I first started my business, even I was in like 12-hour days, and I just looked at my journal from like a year ago, and I was like, Emily, you need to stop working 12-hour days. Let's try 8. And then I went from 8 to 5, and now I'm on my way from 5 to 3. So but truly, it's exactly what you said. We can get done in a short period of time, what most people, right, like they have to take 12 hours to do. The other thing is like you were talking about asking for help before, it's because you and I are actually not supposed to execute most shit. Like we're actually just supposed to pretty much guide. That's like pretty much all we're supposed to do. And anything else we're supposed to have help with. Like anything else we're supposed to have like people supporting us. We're supposed to be very supported, especially as business owners, because we're just not supposed to be doing that much, because we need to use all that energy to guide and advise.
But that's like the overall goal is to like, I mean, this might be kind of worldly, but it's like heal the world. You know what I mean? Like if everybody kind of help them, like if I can teach people how to help themselves, if you can teach people how to help themselves, we can all be happy and healthy and point and laugh at everybody else's wounds too. You know what I mean? Like whatever, It is what it is.
I literally, it's so funny you say that, because I literally have like a post like, when you heal yourself, you heal the world, right?
Yes, absolutely. Same. I knew we'd get along. As soon as I read your thing, I was like, she's my people.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a couple more things for you. So your energy is very sensitive, which I know you know. Our whole lives, we pretty much like, we have to be really insanely, like you're saying, I have to do self-care, I have to read, I have to do all of these things. You actually really have to, because otherwise you will burn out. And you and I are like we're prone to bitterness, but actually in our line of work, it's really less bitterness now, because we're doing work that's in alignment, and it's more about burnout. So especially as our own, like as people who own our own businesses, like we just have to be very, very careful about managing our energy. And we just need way more rest and relaxation than we think we do, including way more sleep than we think we do. Like we should be sleeping 9-10 hours a night.
I sleep like 6. This is like a goal. And that's actually an improvement from what it used to be. So that is definitely a goal for myself.
So you also have an open emotion. So I'll tell you 2 more things. You have an open emotional system, which means I'm sure you see yourself as an empath. Like you probably identify as an empath. You can feel everybody's emotions, but you actually are wired as an empath. You're wired that way. So you're wired where your people's emotions actually come into your energetic system. So you can physically feel them. You can emotionally feel them, not just see them and recognize them. And so what happens, it's great as a coach because you can sense all this stuff. The problem is that 1, we have to have super, super, super clear boundaries. Exactly. And 2, we also take on a lot of collective energy. So it's like, we think what's our emotion, but it's not really our emotion. It's like kind of a collective emotion or somebody else's emotion, or it's like, right, not ours. So you have that. And then you also have some defined stuff. So you've defined splenic intuition, which when you were saying, I get these gut feelings and it's a clear yes or no, that's your splenic intuition. Not everybody's wired that way. You and I are wired to have a clear gut, yes, no, life or death type intuition. And then we're also wired for these downloads. So that's actually, and your intuition's actually like that. It is naturally a driver for you and I. It's not always naturally a driver for other people, but that's because both of our intuitive, we're both splenic intuition. And so it's naturally part of our systems. So there's some stuff about your human design.
I love this. And I'm not shocked by any of it, but it's always like so cool to just get like the validation. But I do, as I've worked with clients, I do know that I have to set strict boundaries, and I've had to like teach myself that when I'm off the phone or when I'm off a Zoom, like I have to like leave whatever happened, because I can't take that through the day. And I've done that before. And then I'm like, why do I feel this way? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's because I talked to that person. And so yeah, I have like these almost like cut the cord things that I do after like these kinds of calls, because it's like a physical and energetic, like, all right, I'm done. And the other thing, my husband always gives me shit because he's like, it always smells like pot in our house. Because like I'm constantly like saging myself. I'm like, get all that juju out of here. Like,
literally, me too. Like I have it everywhere. Yeah, me too.
Like, are you burning it again?
Constantly taking baths. Like I'm like, I've got to get in the bath. I got to release this stuff.
Salt on myself too. Like, yeah. It's just how I operate though. And I've again, probably similar to you, kind of learned the hard way. But it is funny because it was my intuition that guided me to do all of those things. So again, like the human design is right. Like it's, it was like, hey, you should do this thing. And now I do that thing, and it helps me with all the rest of the stuff too, so I really love that. Do you teach your clients all this stuff too?
No, it's funny. So I know about human design, and like, obviously I can do like a quick, like high level reading. I can't go it's very complex. So when you're actually, if I were to do like a full reading for you, I'd have to do like a ton of research to sort of go through all these lines and channels and gates and stuff, which people do. Like that whole business is on human design. I'm at some point going to probably build in some human design stuff because I like the idea of actually just people being able to get this high level stuff, because what it does, it's exactly what you said. You probably already know this stuff about you, but you aren't listening to it, right? At least I know for me, I wasn't listening to it. I was like, well, of course I'm just going to work a normal 8 to 12 hour day. And of course I'm just going to do the normal things that other people do. But like, no, that's actually not how I'm wired. And that's not how I operate at my best. And so actually having this map and this tool has been pretty life-changing for me, honestly, in terms of really being able to create a business that's totally in alignment with how I'm actually supposed to show up and work and give my gifts or whatever. And so, yeah, I haven't built it in yet to the program, but it'll come at some point.
I love that. I usually do, like, I've had clients do like astrology reports. A lot of times I'll have them do personality tests, just so that I can see where they're at, because, or even like I've had people do, actually I have a lot of my clients do this, the 5 love languages, like how they receive, you know, and that also helps me kind of understand where they're at, because I'm not going to give people compliments if they think that's weird, you know, or I could just send them a card in the mail if they want, like, you know, gifts or whatever. Sometimes people just want that extra quality time, you know, and so like I go through these things and I have them take this stuff so that I can understand how I can better serve them. So one that I've done, there's one that's called 16 Personalities. I really like that one. That one's kind of an in-depth one. I've done destiny card reports with my clients. I've done the love languages. I've done the GEMS test. So I've done those. So maybe I'll incorporate the human design piece too, because I do really like how that kind of hits on all of those things.
It's so cool. Yeah.
But yeah, it just kind of helps you better understand where people are at and where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, because, and again, like you, like, it's not a one size fits all, you know what you said going in the beginning, like everybody learns differently. And it's really like learning how people process information and how to best support them through their healing journey, you know?
Totally. And I mean, I think the thing about human design too, what it does is there just really aren't, it shows you that there's no real weakness, right? That really it's just what is in alignment with you and what's out of alignment with you, right? So it just in a way just validates exactly who you are and how you operate, and sort of demonstrates that we're literally all wired differently, right? There is no like, this is how many, this is what your morning, the one thing you need to do for this one thing, whatever it is, right? We all sort of feel like there's one, we're taught that there's one way, right? That there's like one right way. And I think that's the thing that's really powerful about this type of assessment, is that it just shows you that there is no one right way. There's just the you way, you know?
Were you a rule breaker growing up?
I have never followed a rule in my life. I think like if I see a rule, I'm like, okay, like I don't care. Like, like if I think the rule makes sense, I'll follow it. If I don't think the rule makes sense, I'm not going to follow it, right? Like, yeah, no, I'm definitely not a rule follower. Are you? You
No.
seem like a rule breaker too.
Have you done the Enneagram test?
No. Yeah, I have. I think I'm a 7, but I don't know much about it.
Okay, so my dominant is an 8, which is a challenger. And then my 7 is like the energy, I think it's energetic or something like that. Or anyways, but yeah, no, growing up, it's so funny because a lot of my family are like, no, these are the rules you can't do. And so there's me, I'm always like the black sheep over here. Like, are they really rules? Are they like hard rules? Or like, is there some room? Like, can we challenge this stuff? I bet there's an easier way. I bet there's another way. So I'm always like thinking 5 steps beyond whatever is like right in front of me.
So that's actually what human design says about that, is that projectors, you and I are here to look at systems and to make them better.
Ah, that makes sense.
So that's why we look at rules and we're sort of like, well, like the ones that make sense, fine. But the ones that don't make sense, like I'm not going to follow that. And like, that makes no sense. I'm going to do that too. Because we actually, the processes and the systems, we are really good at seeing them and breaking them down and like recreating them for humanity.
I love that. I love that. Well, and I know we're probably going to go over time here. So we're going to have to do like a part. Like,
I know. We're like, here's the human design reading portion. If you'd like to listen to this.
See you later. Come back for part 2.
Yep.
But no, before we start to wrap this up, can you tell me like what's the biggest thing that you want to leave listeners with who may be struggling in like their current career, their current job, or just like finding their passion, finding their purpose? Like what's that one step that they can take? What's the one thing you want to leave with them? Or 2 steps.
powerful thing that I think you can do is to truly start to build habits around connecting to yourself. So going back to the conversation that you and I had in the beginning, there are so many different ways to connect to yourself, right? That's the bit. Any answer to any question in life, you hold the answer. The answer does not exist outside of you. It does not exist in having a million conversations with other people. It does not exist in scrolling through LinkedIn for jobs. It does not exist in, changing your job or getting a new boss. Like, it exists inside of you, and you hold all of those answers. So if you can build that muscle and start to really understand how your intuition's talking to you, really starting to trust that so that you can take action on that, it'll change everything. And that shift from looking externally and trying to create external change in your life to actually going internal and believing that if I change internally, or if I go internally for the answer, then my external world will change, that'll change everything. And it really is as simple as that. I think we overcomplicate. We can overcomplicate that you have to do all of these things to heal and all these things to grow and all these things. I mean, listen, I have a whole course. I have a whole purpose course. I have all these things, right? Like, I've built this too. But the simplest thing, build that muscle to listen to your higher self and to your intuition, and everything else will fall into place.
So what's coming up next for you? How can, in terms of business, how can people work with you?
Yeah. So I have a free 5-day online course. It's a training series called Career Camp. You can sign up at any time on my website, but I also do live career camps once a quarter-ish. So if anybody is listening to this and is feeling super stuck in their career, super directionless, super just, demotivated, and you've got that voice of, I know there's something more out there for me, like this is not it, head to my website and sign up for Career Camp, and you will start to really put some wheels in motion on the journey of both tuning inwards to actually get some of those answers that live inside you, and hopefully start to see some of those external changes appear in your career and really in life. But that's it. That's what I got going on.
I love that. And I'll put all this in the show notes too. So anybody listening to this or watching this, you can scroll down. All of the notes will be in there. Can you drop your website for people who are just listening in the car?
Yes, it's EmilyElizaMoyer.com. So EmilyElizaMoyer.com. That's it.
Okay. And do you hang out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? Where are you hanging out?
I'm on the gram. Same thing, Emily Eliza Moyer, and I teach about all of this stuff. And so if you're interested in learning more about how to use your intuition to build a career that you love, you can find me in there too.
Okay. I love it. Well, thank you so much. I feel like I can chat your ear off forever. I loved this conversation. I feel like we could even go deeper into that, but I think we've given some people some good tools to start. And even like an intro into human design, which was kind of unexpected, but I love that we went there. It just shows that we're people too. And that like, I don't know everything. So you just kind of gave me like a human design 101, and I loved it and appreciated it. So I hope people got a little bit out of there, and maybe what they can do is head on over and take your career camp and maybe learn a little bit more about themselves, either with some personality tests or even some human design. So thank you. This was awesome.
Thanks, Sasha. This was so much fun chatting with you too. I'm so glad we got to do this.
Thanks for listening to the Sasha Davis podcast. For more information on personal and professional development, we've created a master list of all of the resources discussed in the podcast and the blog. So head on over to sashadavis.com/resources for our full list.